More severe storms are coming, and unfortunately they could impact your 4th of July firework plans. We have an active weather pattern on hand with multiple areas of thunderstorms expected, some of which could be bringing damaging winds and very large hail as people are trying to celebrate America's 250th. We're also still tracking the end of our heat wave across the east, which will continue to be dangerous. Today is July 3rd, 2026, and there's a lot happening in the weather. Today in the Weather World, we'll tell you the exact threats and areas that need to watch out for strong storms and dangerous heat. So starting for today, July 3rd, I know many of us have this Friday off. Here's our severe weather outlook. In general, the greatest area of severe weather is across this yellow region. That's a level 2 out of 5 slight risk. It's pretty expansive, going all the way from the plains in South Dakota to Nebraska, eastward through the Midwest, including Chicago, into the Ohio Valley, and then portions of New England, including New York City. The more focused area of severe weather right now under the enhanced risk is a small region of eastern Nebraska and far western Iowa, including Omaha, Sioux City. So if you're in the surrounding regions in the Dakotas into Iowa, definitely know you have the highest chance of slightly more elevated severe weather. The marginal risk though is even bigger though, very expansive, all the way from Montana down into Alabama. So many of us are under the gun for just these summertime pop-up thunderstorms, any of which could contain some gusty winds, large hail. The more focused severe weather though is in that yellow and orange corridors. Tornado risk is pretty low tomorrow. There is a low possibility of a few tornadoes in that enhanced risk, and maybe this increases a little bit in probability. I'm really not too concerned about the tornado threat. By far it will be the damaging winds that's the greatest across this whole region. The enhanced risk is driven by the slightly more focused corridor where higher end damaging winds, 75-80 miles per hour, are possible. So these are a little more destructive, could cause some more power outages, some more trees to be down. We definitely want to watch out for that this evening across this hatch corridor here in the Central Plains. So timing everything out, we're gonna have a lot of rain and storms ongoing Friday morning, some across the plains, maybe 2 separate complexes according to this model, though there are some differing solutions as to how exactly this will play out. This morning convection though will likely start out sub-severe, but as it moves eastward across the zone, that's where corridors of damaging winds and large hail could develop. So all of our storms will be moving from west to east, and we could have a few clusters traversing across the slight risk to bring the risk for some severe storms. Notice just how much pop-up summertime activity we have in the afternoon. Any of these showers and storms could contain some gusty winds. We also have some more out west near the Rocky Mountains. Here's our more focused corridor of severe weather. It should come around 7 to 8 o'clock. That's when some of these stronger storm clusters will develop. Maybe some of these storms turning supercellular across the Dakotas into Nebraska, and eventually this will consolidate into a bigger complex or cluster of storms and move eastward. If you're in this cluster, it's going to be very noisy, so some torrential rainfall, but also that damaging wind and large hail threat is possible here. So if you have any Friday evening celebrations in this region, you're definitely going to want to be paying attention to the weather, especially in that enhanced risk. This is where your plans could get interrupted, not only interrupted, but pretty heavily disrupted. If we get some of these gusty winds blowing through, it could be a pretty noisy overnight as this cluster weakens across central Iowa, so some overnight storms. And then when we're waking up into the 4th of July, we won't be completely dry. We'll still have some storms ongoing in this corridor, but it will be quieter than it was the previous evening. Unfortunately for the 4th of July itself, we do have some more severe storm potential. Now just because you're under these risks of severe weather, it's by no means a guarantee you'll see storms, but you're definitely going to want to stay weather aware. And just keep in mind that your firework plans, your outdoor activity plans, you might need an indoor alternative, unfortunately, and it is possible that we get some firework cancellations. In this dark green region, that's where the marginal risk of severe weather is. Have a backup plan inside, especially in these slight risk regions though. There's one across western Kansas, eastern Colorado, and then another slightly larger one from the Ohio Valley into the Delmarva, Mid-Atlantic, including New York City, including Washington, D.C. If some of these storms move through, they could be pretty disruptive with some of these damaging winds and very large hail. And if a lot of people are outdoors and some of these storms move through, not only would that be disruptive, it could be dangerous depending on the intensity of the storms. So just keeping an eye to the forecast before heading out. It is a day in these slight risk regions to be weather aware. There will likely be some expansions to some of these slight risks as confidence increases. So let's track the forecast for the 4th of July, specifically which areas we can expect some rain. Now keep in mind this is only one model, so the solution won't be perfect. So first, in the morning we'll wake up to a kind of disjointed look at the radar. Multiple smaller clusters of storms. These are all left over from Friday night. So it's going to be very tough to pinpoint the specifics with this, but it does look like a few of these storms could be on the stronger side. Now as you get into the afternoon hours, this is where activity gets interesting. We're first going to be watching that area in the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast for some of our storms. So these will come a little bit earlier in the afternoon, 3 or 4 o'clock. We could have some pretty big storms near DC, moving near Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. Y'all all need to be weather aware on the afternoon for any of your outdoor plans. They could get interrupted by not just regular storms, but severe storms. So damaging winds and large hail are the primary concerns. winds. We also have a pretty decent signal for rain across the Midwest. So if you're in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and northern Illinois, I would definitely expect some stormy weather at times for the afternoon for the 4th. Not all of these storms will be severe, but definitely can't rule out the risk for some damaging winds. And then look further to the south, look at the smattering of pop-up thunderstorms. These individual storms with some moisture coming in off of the Gulf, it's going to be very hard to predict exactly where they form. Your community might get hit, your neighbor's community might get missed. Just be on guard for potentially a few storms. Now, as we get later on into the evening hours when the fireworks are starting up, we could unfortunately still have a pretty messy afternoon across New England and the Mid-Atlantic. If this model plays out, it would still be pretty wet out here. So we'll hope for some dry breaks in between. From DC to Pittsburgh, Philly, and New York in this whole region, you definitely do want some indoor backup plans. We also might need some indoor backup plans across the Midwest with some more storms continuing near Chicago, near Michigan and Wisconsin, and then some supercells will be firing further east across the plains. So if you're in eastern Colorado and the Rockies, as well as Kansas, some of these storms could be containing large hail. If there was a tornado threat on the 4th, it would be in this region. Doesn't look anything crazy to me, but we probably can't rule out a stray tornado or two with all the environmental setups. Now that was the furthest the HRRR went. We'll go a little bit further with the FV3 model for the evening celebrations. As we go into 10, 11 o'clock, this model is not as aggressive with some of the activity in the northeast as the previous model was, so maybe that's a bit of hope for some of your firework plans, but we could definitely still have some storms persisting in this region. I do think though the severe weather risk will turn to the central plains. Any activity that we get off the Rocky Mountains will be moving eastward toward Kansas, toward Missouri. If we do get a upscale cluster of storms like this model is showing, then we could have a more sustained damaging wind risk. As we go later on into the evening, some storms can continue overnight. We're getting pretty far in the future now, so this model might be becoming a little bit unreliable, but maybe some storms moving through St. Louis and then dying off as we wake up on Saturday. So that's the rainfall side of things. Let's look at temperatures real quickly. It's still going to be hot. The good news for many of us, especially in the north, it's not going to be as hot as it has been the past few days. So first, Friday, July 3rd, if you're just enjoying the holiday off from work, many of us will still be in the 90s. So you can see in the central plains, we're well into the 90s. Up to the north in the Midwest, we'll have some 80s. If you're under some of those storms today, you could get some rain-cooled air. The hot spots will be the Delmarva into the southeast, the Carolinas. You can see these brighter pink colors. This is where triple digits are possible and feels like temperatures could be even hotter. Also across the desert southwest, we could be dealing with triple digits, but pretty typical. For your actual 4th of July though, if you're out and about celebrating, here are your evening temperatures. The peak of the heat will be across the mid-Atlantic into the southeast. Now, the good news for the north, as I mentioned, is we're going to have some slightly cooler air filtering in. This will be helped a little bit by rain, so keep that in mind. But we could have some 70s and 80s for places like Chicago into Minnesota, and much of the northern plains could stay in the 80s, so that's going to be a big improvement to the 90s. The hotspot though is definitely triple digits still possible for the Carolinas, DC, Philadelphia, a lot of the areas in southern Pennsylvania. You could be some of the hottest with feels like temperatures up to 110 degrees, and then we also still have 100s in the desert southwest. So to sum up the forecast for the 4th, let's go through some of the main hazards. This map is going to get pretty crowded by the end, but we're going to go through it bit by bit. So first is the heat. If you're anywhere in these red shades, especially this pink shade, you're at the highest risk for some hazardous heat for any of your outdoor plans. This is where heat indices could reach up to 110 degrees, and then in this broader red shade, we'll have heat indices from 100 to 105 degrees. So dangerous heat out there if you're in these red shades, making sure we're staying hydrated and preparing for that. In this green shade further to the south, so this includes most of the deep south, Florida, this is where pop-up afternoon storms are expected. It's not going to be a washout, but it won't be completely dry either. There will be some storms to contend with. Hopefully we'll get some more breaks rather than storms. If you're in these 3 regions, these are the areas I'm more concerned about concentrated storms being more of a likelihood. So in the Midwest, we have some afternoon storms. We have that other region in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic where we have some afternoon into the evening storms. And then finally, we have that area of evening supercells in the plains from eastern Colorado into Kansas and Missouri. So in those 3 regions, I would definitely be paying closer attention to the forecast. Y'all unfortunately probably have the highest probability of disruptions to outdoor firework plans. Not a guarantee, storms will be moving around, so hopefully we'll get some clear hours in between, but you might have to reschedule your plans for the weather, and through it all we have this broader severe weather risk in this yellow shade. So the map looks really crowded. The biggest thing to pay attention to is that heat risk and these 3 areas for some storms. So that's our full 4th of July forecast. Let's take a look a little bit deeper into next week now as the weather rolls on. We're gonna get a bit of a pattern change, so this is a look at our weather pattern. The past few days we've had this very strong heat dome over the central and eastern US. This has been responsible for the dangerous heat wave for many of us well to the north. Notice how it breaks down as we go into this weekend. So by Saturday and Sunday, that dark red disappears and we don't really see a rebuilding of the ridge for much of the early to middle parts of next week. We might actually get the opposite. Look at this. This model is showing a bit of a trough of low pressure, which would tend to bring some wetter weather, also maybe some cooler weather across the mid-Atlantic to the northeast. It's not until we go to the middle and end portions of the week that the ridge might try to rebuild across the west, maybe across Florida and the southeast. Still a little bit of uncertainty at this range. The takeaway here though is without a strong dominant ridge in place, the weather pattern gets very messy because there's no one defining weather feature in charge. Instead, it's just daytime heating, a lot of energy and moisture available. And this is just kind of no man's land where storms will be forming left and right here and there across the country until our high pressure system can redominate or until a storm system can really sharpen on the forecast. So here's what I mean for a weather pattern. Notice how I go every afternoon. We get this smattering of showers and storms across the central and eastern parts of the country. This is Sunday afternoon. Monday afternoon, we'll do it again. It's really hard to predict the exact details and timing of each of these rounds this far out in advance. Without any big defining weather features, it's really the small details in the atmosphere that can dictate these showers and storms that pop up daily. So pop-up showers and storms, there will definitely be some localized corridors where severe weather potential is increased, so those will be some threats to watch out for, but otherwise some decent rainfall for many of us. It's just going to be very scattered and kind of erratic in nature. In terms of severe weather, we actually do already have a day 4 risk as of this recording, so by Friday this will be on the day 3 outlook, so we'll get a proper marginal and slight risk. But if you're in this region in the Delmarva area, including DC, severe weather is possible on Sunday. This is where there's a slightly better signal. Now after that, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for the rest of the week, I definitely expect some severe weather to continue with all the storms we have out there, but again, predicting the details this far out is very difficult, and we're just gonna have to kind of go day by day. Very typical mesoscale severe weather setup. The other good thing with this weather pattern though for the temperatures is it actually does mean some cooler air will be coming. Without that strong ridge of high pressure focusing our heat, it means that the heat won't be as intense, especially across the northern portion of the country. So we're gonna have some more 70s and 80s for highs. Now it's still gonna be kind of humid, so it's still probably gonna feel like the 90s. However, this map looks a lot different than the past few days when we had all that red and that dark red where we're having the 90s and even triple digits. This will be a lot more seasonal, even slightly below average. The exception will be the south where it's gonna stay hot because it is summer, so we're still gonna have 90s and feeling like 100 degrees. But especially in the north, a little bit of relief, and maybe some cooler mornings as well up to the north, where if you're in this pale green shade, we could have some cooler mornings in the 60s. So looking at our extreme heat, this is the extreme heat for the 4th of July, especially across the eastern parts of the country. Notice how day by day, the red and the purple will gradually shrink. So still some dangerous heat across the Carolinas by the start of the week, but as we go later into the week, the risk shrinks a lot, just more of this yellow shade, which just means it'll be hot, but nothing crazy. A much more typical pattern where the south, you'll be the hottest, and the north in this yellow shade, we will have some relief coming in. So that's a look at the forecast with our 4th of July festivities and then everything after. To everyone celebrating America's 250th, wishing everyone the best. Let's have some great fireworks out there. Let's hopefully limit some of these storms. They will be coming though for some parts of the country, unfortunately, and we just want to stay weather aware. Likely your whole evening won't get ruined. You'll get some nice moments here and there, but especially in those regions we highlighted, make sure you at least have weather in the back of your mind in the case that some of these storms move through. Also, we do want to be watching out for some of that dangerous heat, especially in the northeast and the mid-Atlantic. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you never want to miss an update in the weather world, consider subscribing. Otherwise, hope you'll have a wonderful holiday weekend, and I'll see you next time.